cut the music. Do not want to get a copyright strike. But this setup here is one of the best lightweight setups you can get as a solo filmmaker. I'm going to show you why. Alright, so this is going to need more unpacking than the morning of Christmas Day, but I think I've got it. First off, we got the iPhone 16 Pro. This is used as your wide-angle B cam. Also used as your wireless light control. Also used as your drone monitor. Also used as your wireless camera monitor for later on in the night. Moving on, we have the SmallRig handle. This is a great fulcrum point, balancing point for your camera. And great for you when you want to do underslung shots as well. We then have the wireless Go 2 microphone. This is for obviously monitoring your audio. Moving on, we got the NATO rail SmallRig handle, rotatable. This is fantastic. It allows you to keep your hand further away from the sensor, allowing you for smoother shots and also just better ergonomics in general. We then have the mirrorless SmallRig Cage for the Sony A7s III. This allows me to put everything here together. Then of course we have the Sony A7s III itself. This is actually Sony A7 III because A7s III is filming. This camera allows for 5-axis stabilization, fantastic dynamic range and fantastic low light. Last but not least, we have the Sony 24-105 G Master 2 lens, and this is allowing me to utilize that crazy autofocus. All right, so I've talked a big talk, so I need to explain how this works so well. First off, there's no gimbal. Less weight, fantastic. There's no battery pack. Less weight, fantastic. And lastly, no cables. Nothing to flick out, nothing to accidentally knock. Well, to be fair, there will be one cable for the wireless mic, but the little one that goes in there, you're never gonna knock it. Okay, there's a few instances where this exact setup may not be the best case scenario, such as maybe you're doing a really quick pushing establishing shot where you're basically sprinting or going further than a few meters, then you may need a gimbal for that instance. There may be a time where you're wanting that manual focus to pull between particular items easily, then you may want to use that, or other artistic reasons why you may want things out of focus. But the best thing about the setup on this camera and almost every other modern camera, not only can you touch focus on the screen what you want to focus, you can set delays and focus speed, so you can have it focus slowly, rack focus slowly, or rack focus very quickly, all programmable inside the camera. In my opinion, if you're shooting weddings, events, and other dynamic events as a solo filmmaker, you can't afford to be missing autofocus on your camera, especially one with face detection, which most cameras have these days by default. I find you can, if you don't like this, you can map it to a button where you can switch it on and off. You can also touch the back of most modern cameras and it will track what you've touched on the screen. This is a no-brainer in my opinion. You just get so many more useful shots. I was one of those guys that had Canon glass from back when I had 5D Mark II or a Canon 7D. I just adapted it to my Sony camera and I used to manual focus everything for years. I became a really, really good manual focus puller and I thought to myself, I don't miss shots. And it wasn't until I used native glass with its OSS and the IBIS in the camera working together that I realized how many more usable shots. It probably went up a good like 30%, maybe even 40% more usable shots, especially when it came to like trickier situations. So definitely do that. The few times that autofocus won't grab what you want to grab will be made up tenfold by all the shots that it does get that you would have missed if you didn't have autofocus. Okay, so a lot of you may be thinking there's no way I can go for a full day shoot without having that power bank, keeping everything charged throughout the day. And I do somewhat agree with that. It reduces anxiety. But the trade-off is you add so much more weight. This is so much lighter. There's a solution to that though. One, just remember to change your batteries on your camera, be a professional. But we all make mistakes and it's important to have a power bank sitting around. Now, you may be thinking, I'm just kicking the can down the road. How do you even mount this? This is where I think this is good. Don't mount it on the camera to add extra weight. What you want to do, just like a backpack in some ways, you offset the weight to a stronger muscle, this being your legs. So chuck it in your pocket and you can just plug in into your phone, your camera, and because you don't have a gimbal, it doesn't even affect your shots at all. Just make sure you got a long enough cable and you're off to the races. This is charging it, it's not affecting your shots, it's not getting in the way much, and you only need to really do this towards the end of the night when things start to go flat. Simple solution. Trade-offs are better than the alternatives. That's where it comes down to. Okay, so onto one of my most excited features of this whole setup, and it's the phone. The iPhone 16 Pro to be precise. I have a whole video about why you really want the iPhone 16 Pro over anything else, but if you really need to, you can use an Android phone as well. Just don't recommend it. First off, this phone can be used as a wireless monitor to easily tap focus, just like that. Works like a glove. Okay, occasionally it does kind of disconnect, but it reconnects really, really quickly. And if you are worried about that and want perfect connection, add a cable. But you know, we're doing the whole no cable thing here, so yeah, just go with the wireless. It works well enough for the day. Secondly, but probably just as equally importantly, actually no, probably more importantly, the 3 lenses. Now I use mostly the 13mm lens on this. It pairs well with the 24-105 main camera, but I also found using the 120mm 5x zoom on top fantastic for your third camera during your ceremony if you're doing that. Otherwise, it of course does some other useful things such as your drone controller monitor. The Mavic 2. I know it's old, but you know, still works really well. But another really exciting thing this does, if you're like, oh, what else could this phone do? It's just a phone, right? Yeah, it takes phone calls, but another exciting thing for filmmaking is it controls lights. Now these 2 Amaran lights behind me controlled by the Sidus Link app. I can simply push a button and they're off. Now this is fantastic if you're doing like speeches and you want the lights turned off, and just before they start speaking, boom, you turn them on. You're not giving people too much stage fright. Actually, it might give them really, look, just you can do whatever you want, whether you're trying to give people stage fright or not. But what's really good about these lights is they can do some other things other than be your speech lights, and I'll show you. If you're cool enough, you simply go to the All Fixtures, click Effects, click Party Lights, and you got yourself a freaking party on the go. Fantastic for chucking on the camera and adds to those DJ lights that are going on and off. And of course, you gotta dance to them. All right, onto the lenses. This is the Sony 24-105 GF4. You might be thinking, oh, it's a little bit slow, but you won't even notice the f4, I swear, on most of the time. I've shot with f2.8 glass a lot, and honestly, once you've zoomed in a bit, you almost forget that it's only f4. Plus, the Sony body itself is a low light beast, so it really compensates for the lack of low light capabilities. There are a few other lenses out there which are really good. The third-party lenses from Sigma and Tamron are great, although they don't have the optical stabilization that works with the IBIS in the camera, so keep in mind on that. And they also don't have the focus breathing compensation. The Tamron 35-150 f2 to f2.8 is a fantastic option if you want a little bit more reach, but make sure you're always pairing that with your wide-angle phone lens 28 with the 24 or the 13mm lens in it. Another fantastic options is what I call the 3 primes in 1 lens that Sony just released. It's the 28-70 f2 G Master. Now that's about 3 times the price of this, so just under that, and a lot bulkier. So you're starting to really have some huge trade-offs there, but you know, obviously silky bokeh and fantastic depth of field in it. It still might be an option I might choose for wedding shoots. in the future when I can afford it. But for now, I think it's not as big as an upgrade as you may think it is. Just keep in mind, still would recommend using prime lenses when you can. Obviously that great depth of field is fantastic for things like the jewelry shots or the photo shoot, especially when these like things aren't moving around and it isn't as crazy or hectic. And that's basically the rule of thumb. If things are static and calm, chuck on those primes, do some interesting artistic shots. When things are run and gun and on the go, stick on that 24-105 and yeah, it hits the mark every time. It's even though it's a 6-year-old lens, it's autofocus is still absolutely fantastic. I never noticed it ever missing, and yeah, it's bargain for what it gives you and its sharpness. All right, so you got the gear, a few ideas in the noggin, but what do you do with these limbs of yours? Now, there's a few tips and tricks I'd say to get you going in the right direction. But first of all, we need to make sure we turn on all the image stabilization that your camera has. First of all, of course, turn on the optical stabilization on the lens itself, and make sure you turn on the in-body image stabilization, or the IBIS, in the camera menu. The next important thing is to make sure you're holding the camera the right way. Now, if you hold it out too far in front of you, you'll get some of those little micro jitters. Now, thankfully, the IBIS will help mitigate that, but to minimize it further, which is always the best case scenario, lock your elbows against your body like this and try to do movements that move just like this. So you've got only big, gross movements, like it's one rigid system moving around. Otherwise, make sure your autofocus is turned on and your tracking is turned on. Ideally map these to a custom function in your camera and make sure there's a cancel button for your tracking as well. Sometimes you don't want the face tracked, almost always do. And so make sure you have custom buttons that are either one button or in at least a sub menu, say the function menu. Apart from that, after you film everything, there's 2 really cool programs to use to get even steadier. And this is actually quite a big point, one of the reasons why you don't need gimbals anymore. You can use a free program called Gyroflow. This works for Resolve and Premiere, or Premiere. Otherwise, there's the Catalyst Browse, which is Sony's proprietary one. One of the good things about the Sony proprietary one, it is now a plugin for Premiere and Resolve. And unlike Gyroflow, you can have the in-body image stabilization turned on even on active, and it will still work. Where Gyroflow, you need to have the IBIS turned off. So the big downfall for, I'd say, Gyroflow, even if it is good, the amount of times you need to actually use Gyroflow is very limited. It's only when you're doing those big gross movements. So if you have IBIS turned on and the optical image stabilizer turned on the entire day, very, very few shots that you would actually need to further stabilize. Because what you'll find out when you edit it together, most shots are only a few seconds, and if everything's shot in 60 frames per second and slowing down to 24, yeah, you're going to need stabilization even less than you'd think. All right, onto the phones. The gold standard definitely is the iPhone 16 Pro. It's got that 5x zoom, which looks fantastic still. That improved 13mm lens as well, and just matches so well with the Sony camera. It has fantastic highlight roll-off, color rendition, and grading. Like, it's just everything about it screams professionalism when you're bringing it into post-production. Other than the depth of field, obviously, but if you watch my other video, you know why that isn't a problem. The iPhone 15 Pro would be definitely serviceable, and you could probably still get away with it. 14, 13, probably less so. I'm sure the optics isn't quite up to scratch there, and I don't know how good the color rendition is on those, but in a pinch, those would work too if you wanted to start with those. With the Androids, they just don't seem to have it in the video department. They still have some fantastic picture quality, but from what I've seen, the video still looks that digital feel to it, unlike the log footage in the Apple ProRes. All right, that is all I have for today. I personally think this is one of the best and most effective setups that you can get on the market that isn't breaking the bank either, in my opinion. Now, if you want a custom setup and you have different budgets, write in the comment section below and I'll shoot you back a full list of gear that you could get according to your budget. Or if you want an idea or a recommendation on a particular type of gear, lens, audio equipment, shoot me a comment and I'll get back to you with my recommendations and why. Got to get that community drive up somehow, right? All right, I think I've rambled long enough. Here's Doug. Catch you next time, guys.
Subscribe.